Hello and good morning. Making a video today covering modifications I have on this vehicle, modifications and changes I did to my last Tacoma, and stuff that I learned along the way, things I like, things I don't like, changes I'd consider making, and stuff like that. So I'm gonna kind of let this video become what it is and evolve as I film it and create some clips here. But hopefully there'll be some good information between the mods I do have, stuff I do carry, how they've held up off-road, what I've changed and why, and what I would suggest. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. And what better way to run than from the ground up? So we'll move back here. We've got a little better access, a little better view. And wheels and tires. And I guess I should really say wheels and tires and spacers. You can see there's a real slim little guy back there. So working from the spacer out, those are BORAs, which I believe stands for bulletproof off-road adapters or something like that. Anyhow, they're billet aluminum, hub centric. They're just 3/4 of an inch, so 0.75 inches. And they give you just a tiny bit of poke. Now mind you, these are the matte pro wheels, so they don't stick out, but they definitely don't stick in. The shoulder of the tread is basically right alongside where the fender flare is. I've used them for a while. I've done nearly all my wheeling with them. I've had no issues, plus it's just such a minor bit of offset. These pro wheels, the matte ones, in my opinion, these are the best looking Toyota wheels out there. That's why I chose to spend my money and buy them. 16 inches, matte black, kind of ties in with that black theme I've got, augmenting the silver with that touch of red that kind of blends in a few places throughout the truck. You know, they're lighter, they've got a little more offset than the factories, which is why I'm only using those 3/4 inch BORAs. And then wrapped around all of them are Falcon Wild Peak AT3Ws in the 265, 75, 16 configuration. So technically, they're just slightly oversized, and I really think they look great. They've worked great for me between driving them around town, between 32, 35 PSI, and taking them off-road. For me, only as low as 15. They do great. They do just as well as any other all-terrain tire would. However, these perform very well in the rain, very well in the snow. So occasionally we go on some mountain trips, and like every other human who's a driver, I'm exposed to driving in the rain pretty good, and they do a lot better than the KO2s, and I'm sure they do better than some other offerings. Their noise is nice. Their price is great. Now, these are just 6-ply. I'm not banging 10 plies, so you've got to make your own decision on what ply count you want to run. For me, I'll probably continue to run the 6s, but that's it for wheels and tires. Moving over to Skids and Armor. All right, so coming into Armor, I've got the aluminum TRD engine skid plate. Not much to say about it. It is what it is. It does a good job. I like it. It's aluminum. If you think you need steel, you make that decision on your own. Mating up to it is the RCI transmission skid plate that also has the cat guards. That was a promo they ran at the time of my purchase. The thing you'll notice right away that I'm not crazy fond of is that gap between the mating points of the engine and the transmission skid. So it's fantastic for going forward, not so great for going in reverse. Don't really love that. Also, you notice where that subframe connects, there is no exhaust pipe there. I had that rerouted, so just kind of hold on to that nugget as I spin into performance, if you will. Let's put some quotes around that word. I had the exhaust, the driver's side cylinder bank of the Y pipe rerouted high and wide around the T-case, so then you could have a more smooth T-case skid and not have to worry about having that weird little bob underneath it. There is also still the same flanges, so you can still service the drive shaft by dropping that Y pipe, and you can still put a aftermarket or OEM cap back on there. Now, things I'd like to change, I would like to get a better engine skid. Maybe get a T-case skid. When you already see none of these skids are beat up too bad, so there's not really any need, but it's one of those things, rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. We've got a few pretty intense wheeling trips scheduled this year, and Maybe I'll get some, maybe I won't. With that exhaust change, I also am running the TRD Performance exhaust. I do like it. It makes a nice little sound. Very, very quiet. It's probably the quietest exhaust change you could make. I don't really love that I had that axle dump done. I should have cut a little higher and set up the place to get it welded so that the tip would be further upwards, because when I drop the spare, I do have to manipulate the tire to clear it. It's not a big deal, and there's enough space that that spare tire does not generate any undue heat on it, but you know, it is what it is. I don't drop the spare very often, so I can live with it. Last part of Armor is these Cali raised step edition 0 degree sliders with the kick out, and I had them coated. These are also the bolt-on edition, so they are not welded onto the frame. Install on those, pretty straightforward. If you got just one other set of hands, no matter how strong, they can help you get this put on. But this isn't an install video, this is kind of a review on what I have and what I like. So if you do need steps to get into your vehicle, then you're probably not even looking at rock sliders. But if you want rock sliders, you want some protection, you want to be able to jack your truck up from these sliders, you want to be able to slide across stuff with the sliders. However, my wife still uses the sliders every day as a step to get into the truck. So they do work for it. They're a nice area to stand up on top, clean the truck. They're actually better than the OEM Predator ones that just have those two little goofy drop down steps. And this kick out is nice to be able to stand on and reach stuff in your bed when you're in a tough spot and the back half is, you know, still sitting in the water or the mud. But all in all, I like these. I think these are fantastic sliders. I also got these on a great sale. I don't remember what occasion it was, but they came with free shipping, which is great because they're very heavy, and they were like 30% off. So sliders are expensive, and whenever you can get a cheaper deal on them, you kind of jump on it. So covering that TRD exhaust, we'll go into performance type items. Again, performance with an air quote. So the TRD exhaust is in there. It's got a little bit of sound to it. You've got a little bit more internal diameter on the piping. The TRD intake gives you a larger aperture to draw air from the fender. And you've got a K&N-esque or very K&N-like filter. Everything else pretty much the same. You got a slightly different resonator up there. I like it. It's cool. It looks a little gaudy, but you've got some nice induction sounds under high load, high rev, but I'm for it. Again, keeping with the air quotes theme of performance, I got the TRD oil cap, just aesthetic, metal, no longer plastic. The TRD intake or radiator cap that holds a little more back pressure in the system, so the fluid boils less rapidly, or rather it never boils, but overheats less rapidly under the additional barometric pressure, and then that keeps it cycling through the system. I've got a oil catch can, just in case. These things can dump a lot of oil if you're sitting at a pretty steep incline, so I'd rather have it there. Now, obviously, ideally, a crankcase runs under slightly negative pressure, but that whole PCV system does dump some oil back into the intake manifold. And even though we have 12 injectors on these trucks, with 6 being direct, 6 being port, it's still nice to have less oil going on to those intake valves. If you can help control it, why not? The biggest performance thing that I have going on this truck, no question, is something I can't show you any depiction of, and that's the KD Max Pro XT Plus 9.0 version tune. So right now I know the OTT, Overland Taylor Tuning, is all the hotness. KD Max is still banging, making great tunes. I've got a video on that, 2 of them actually, one for the previous truck, one for this truck. So that video would be way too long if I discuss the KD Max tune, but when you press or mash the gas pedal in this truck, the primary thing you're gonna be feeling is that KD Max tune, no question. But anyhow, we'll jump right back in and move along to the other aspects of the truck. So what is a video that's covering off-road type recovery stuff and doesn't get into gear that you can carry? So coming back here underneath my behind my rear seat, I've got a Rhino USA rapid air down tool. I've got just some regular old jumper cables. I've got a top-down jump box, also phone charger. I have my Smittybilt 2.54 CFM air compressor, powered by the alligator clips directly to the battery with a fuse in that cable, not the one that plugs into your cigarette lighter that's always going to blow out that damn fuse. And in addition, I have a Rugged Ridge 20,000 pound kit for the winch. So that's gonna have another set of bow shackles, D-ring shackles. It's got, I don't know, 6 or 8 foot tree saver. It's got a snatch strap. It's got a winch block. It's got your gloves. It's got all your basics. But I'm really not too fond of how short that tree saver is. Most trees, even around here, are too big to adequately use that. So if you encounter an issue, you should always try to create an answer. And for me, that short strap has been remedied by carrying a High Lift brand 15-foot strap. Also got a fire extinguisher back here, and then this is kind of like some general knickknacks. Got a spare set of shears and a knife. I've got a headlamp, and I've got a cleaning kit, a cleaning rod that I use for, a lot of times I'm out shooting suppressed rifles, and once in a blue moon, all that back pressure might not agree with the rifle that I'm shooting suppressed, and I had to bang a casing out. Lastly, I've got a baggie with some batteries back here. And then being off the road, I'm still using the OEM bottle jack, but I am using this piece of 4x6 as a base plate so I don't sink it down in the mud. Also helps me gain a little bit of extra clearance and have to bottle jack less. So very minor lift, very minor tire increase, but nonetheless, this is to help me get my truck lifted up off the ground. And hopefully this will prove to be adequate in off-road scenarios. Now, I didn't want to go spend like 50 bucks, 100 bucks on a big wide base plate, but we will see how this works out over time. I do think I need to step up my jack game from just using the OEM bottle jack up to something a little more appropriate. It's worked for me so far, but hopefully it'll keep working in the future. But that's a small jack, very small jack. Again, we'll just see. Also, I use a remote control for the winch, and I have the direct plug-in control back here because if you are using remotes, you should always have something direct. And I'm not going to even get into covering this, but this is just a trauma bag I do carry. Usually it's got some bottles of water in it, but I pillaged them the other day. It's got everything from tourniquets to splints to pretty heavy trauma gear. It's a lot more beefy than most people are going to want to carry. I've also got some blankets, some batteries, spare shears, some 550 cord for convenience, and gloves. Again, pretty oversized, but again, better to have it, not need it, right? Also, having all these doors open made me kind of think about my video on my interior mods. I've done quite a few. You can come through and take a look at that video. It's not really worthwhile to cover here. Interior mods, if they're tasteful and they're classy, cool. They're super personal and not much I can say about them that hasn't already been said on a previous video. So moving right along to kind of sum up recovery equipment. This is where I get a lot of questions and whatnot on. Oh, we got a little friend over here hanging out with us. Anyhow, the entirety of this setup does fit underneath the tonneau cover, and I absolutely love that about it. All the brackets that hold everything up, before I can even get to brackets actually, third gens do not come with this little cab rail, the cab header rail. So you've got to buy your own separately, and that's going to be an OEM part. Just look up second gen cab header rail, I believe is the term, or just search around, you will find it. But the brackets that hold this up are by RagoFab. They're actually a two-piece setup, so the top part is just that bracket, and they have an extension right there. Works very well with the rubberized bed mat. Holds everything in place, nice and tight. From there, it's went to the hardware store. Like I said, I have videos on most of these things independently, but I created my own little brackets and got everything set up that way. These are the big, wide X-Bull boards. They really maximize their space back here. Camera is really having trouble focusing today. Getting kind of annoying. Sure, it's annoying to look at. Anyhow, Max Trax lanyards for keeping them retained in muddy areas. Using some Velcro straps right there to kind of keep them together, because I used to use rubber bands and the rubber bands always broke. So that is a change I've made. I don't mind them breaking, but they'll just get UV damage in storage and break. Over here, we're looking at Relentless Fabrication. Just tool holders. They're quick fist, dual quick fist, so they bolt right on. They kind of help support their weight by sitting on that little channel there, and they're just very straightforward quick fists. So a change I made, since I'm using a Pulaski here and a shovel, is that I put that Velcro strap on here, because some of the wheeling we've done has had this axe head creep back and bang around, and that was very, very annoying. Also, it puts a lot of stress on the quick fists, and I hated that. Some of you are probably wondering why a Pulaski, why not a flathead? I do have a hatchet up there that I didn't cover, a very small hatchet that I can use as a tent stake driver. Also, to save us from going back in the cab, I do have a bag of fuses behind the passenger seat, and also the weird batteries like the 123As and just 123s for the winch remote and for flashlights. But overall, very happy with it. Not a ton of trial and error, and I don't think I would do this any other way, especially since if I'm going into big city or out and about, I can just cover this up with my tonneau cover. Also, if you do have the option to put these in, if you have these little plastic holders for the lights, I would definitely do them. These are like the $25 eBay ones. Plug and play, fantastic, cannot beat it. So up next, we've got bumpers. There's a Body Armor 4x4 Highline bumper. Beautiful little low profile hybrid bumper. Little bull bar welded on there that can help push some ground brush and high grasses off of your grill and off of your sensor. Space for a dual row 20-inch light bar, space for a winch up to 10K, and you've got some recovery points. Now, these are advertised by Body Armor 4x4 as recovery points, but they don't have specific ratings to them. So the bumper mounts in multiple locations to the frame. These are, again, not specifically rated to any certain poundage, but if you're using them, I would feel very comfortable using them. I would just maybe set up a bridle if I was doing a snatch and kind of split the load. Also, if I'm doing like a 2-to-1 pulley on my winch, I would go ahead and just mount right there. No question, no concern. You can buy from Body Armor some wings that bring like that Viper cut into play and have like a metal under tray to them. But I'm very happy with the bumper as it is. It suits my needs. I love the aesthetic of it. If you need greater protection level to your grill, to your radiator, you're worried about animal strikes or tree strikes, then you make your own changes on that. But as for me, I would not change anything up here. Rear bumper, very cost effective, like a $500 bumper from Barricade. This is the Barricade HD, I believe. But not super crazy about its fitment. Kind of looks like it's tilting forward. You get like uneven gaps from side to side, which, that's the way the truck is itself in some areas. So be it. But I do love that it extends further, gives good protection of the taillights. Got a friend over here that's been checking us out for a while. Little gator cruising around. Anyhow, for the price and the benefit it gives, you really can't beat it. You could argue with it extending out, it affects your departure angle a little bit, but that's kind of splitting hairs because it's so small. Also, if you leave a rear recovery point or a tow hitch on there, then it's making no effect on your departure angle. This one still has some areas where you can put in the parking sensors if you have that package. I'm very happy with this bumper. I have my complaints about it, but overall I'm still very happy with it. There's certain other areas of the truck that are uneven by itself. Even where the OEM taillights mounted up over here, you've got slight gaps. Most of the early third gens, the bed sat lopsided. So for me to complain about the bumper being a little bit goofy on how it bolts on, it is what it is. You grow to love it. So next we'll kind of put aesthetics and lighting together. So The Sport Hood, Pro Hood, I paid for that when I bought this truck. I did the same thing with my last truck. Bought the parts, had it painted, had it installed. Does nothing for me, but I love the look. Next is the super duper rare Heritage grill that everybody has. This is the actual OEM grill. It's a little bit pricey, but I get it installed. I had the dealership calibrate the sensors. I have documentation stating as such, so it just makes me feel better if I ever had a weird insurance occurrence. Next to that grill is the OEM lighting for the late 3rd gen. So I have the LED light set up, which I absolutely love. The only addition to that is just using those little film covers on the side that kind of lessen the reflective nature of that amber and kind of further the whole blackout look of the headlight. Everything that doesn't need to be reflective is no longer very reflective. Sitting underneath the headlights are the SS3 Pros by Diode Dynamics. They have that kind of diffusing lens cap cover, and because that lens cover is the flood cover, so it floods light everywhere. Again, I have a video on it. That 20-inch dual row light bar is a combination spot / flood, and that is by Raxium. The 20-inch length is kind of a weird one to find. At quick glances, the only ones I find are Rough Country or Raxium. So if you want to stay away from Rough Country, Raxium appears to be the only readily available option. That may have changed in the last year or so, but at the time, that was the main thing I saw. Further on lighting and aesthetics in the rear, you've obviously noticed we've got these blackout or smoke out taillights. These are by a company, a brand I believe to be called LED Light Bar, and I think they look good. They're very visible, but they have a nice color to them. And, you know, there's not much else to say about them. I'm trying to click the fob while I was talking and show you a little bit of action from them. Now, tucked up behind this guy, unrelated to aesthetics and whatnot, but I'll blend right here into reroutes. I have done my rear differential breather reroute. So I have a breather that I put on top of a bunch of tubing. Let's go all the way up here. So right there in the middle of the picture, you see that tube running off of the diff beneath that pink line that snakes around and runs all the way up here behind the taillight, moving our differential breathing location effectively up to here. The only other reroute I did do was the AC drain, because that just comes right off the firewall. And I now have that guy draining out right there where you see that now dirtied up tube. So all of the water running off the AC system drips all the way onto the ground, not all over the frame. So of all of these mods, I don't think I'd really change anything at all. Now, a point that's worth noting is that I had the Cali raised lights before, fog lights, fog pods, and those appear to give me the same lighting output and spread of light as these Diode Dynamics at a fraction of the price. But the bracket, the mount looked like crap. It would get UV damaged and discolored and kind of white and crusty looking fast. These are clean. These are very much like OEM plus. So it's probably all I got about lighting and aesthetics. All right, so suspension, maybe the elephant in the room for some people, but mine is extraordinarily vanilla, like maybe the most vanilla setup you can have from the aftermarket. So we've got Bilstein shocks, struts, all four sides. Got the nice shiny silver to them. Wrapped on the front, we've got 887 Old Man Emu coils. So those are rated with a double cab short bed 4-wheel drive to give you 2 inches of front lift. But once everything's said and done with all the weight additions to the front, we're probably looking at more like 1.5 inches. On the rear, I'm using the Icon Add a Leaf for the rear, as well as the Bilsteins. And that gives me 1.5 inches. So front and back, 1.5 inches front, 1.5 inches rear. We retain the factory rake. We still look like a pickup truck. We work like a pickup truck. But we've got an additional little bit of clearance. And just overall a fantastic look, in my opinion. All right, well, I had a little list on my phone I want to refer to. I believe I covered everything. I might not have kept my promise perfectly throughout the whole video on telling you what I do like and didn't like about certain modifications. If I skip that by accident, then just trust that I've spent probably too much time doing my research and finding out what fits best in this matrix of what do I really just want, what do I actually need, what do I think looks good, and what do I think is reasonable on pricing. So that pretty much sums up the video. Very, very happy with this truck. Taking it off-road quite a great many times, and can't wait to do some very, very intense journeys this year that we have planned. So on the last half of the year, you'll see some videos that I'm sure we'll make. We're going to be out in Colorado, Albuquerque. We'll go through the Imogene. We'll probably go through Poughkeepsie, and it's going to be a great time. We'll get to kind of exercise a few more of these items that we haven't had to use as much before. But thank you for watching. Hopefully this helps. I'm pretty attentive to my comments section, so if you have a comment to ask, hopefully I'll have you an answer. Again, the main reason I make these videos is that there's a ton of information on these trucks, but sometimes you've just got some questions that aren't out there and readily answerable, or they're hidden within like a 30-minute video that could have just been 2 minutes long. But thank you guys for watching, and as always, y'all have a great day.